Today, third grade artists, you are going to be creating a landscape painting on a white plate. So at the drive-thru, you're going to need to grab your white plate and a messy mat. On the back of my white plate, I write my name and class code, Miss G, and my class code. If I am a number 3 chair when I get to my seat, I am going to need to go to the paint drive-thru and grab the colors blue, white, and green. And at the sink, I need to grab a messy mat and a cup of water with a paintbrush for everyone at my table. Now while I'm waiting for the paints, at my table spot I can start sketching out what my landscape is going to look like. And we talked about showing things like the foreground, which is the area of the landscape that's closest to us, the middle ground, which is in the middle, and then the background, which is the thing that's furthest away. So I just drew 3 hills, the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. And up here is going to be my sky. When I get my paints and I'm ready to start, I'm going to start by painting my sky, and my sky is going to be blue. Just a little bit of blue on my brush, and I'm going to paint the whole top of the sky blue. Even the edges of my plate. Making sure that I get in all of those cracks and all those different surfaces of my plate so that the whole thing is blue. I'm not leaving any white behind. Now here is a new technique for us third grade. This technique is called wet on wet, and you can do that with a variety of different kinds of paints. Today we're going to try it with our paint cup paints, these Tepra paints. So I'm going to paint the whole thing blue, and before I let it dry, before I move on to the ground, I am going to wash up my brush really, really well in my cup, bouncing it up and down. If it drips, I wipe it on the lip. And I'm going to dip my clean brush in the white. I need to make sure that my brush is clean. Otherwise, I get a lot of different colors in my white, and that doesn't look so good. With a little bit of white on my brush, I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to do something called wet on wet. So my paint, my blue paint, is still wet, and I'm painting white over the top to make kind of a light blue. This way I can mix my paints without having to use a mixing tray or getting a light blue in a cup. I can mix it right on my plate. A lot of times when you look at a sky changes colors too. When it's closest to the ground, it might be a little bit lighter. So I'm trying to achieve that with my blue paint by doing that wet on wet. So gently kind of spreading out the white so it goes from lightest blue to darkest blue. Alright, now I am ready for my ground, so I need to wash out my brush again. If it drips, wipe it on the lip. And I'm going to start with my darkest green. So just do a little bit of regular green, painting in the foreground. That's my area, or my hill, that's closest to me, closest to the viewer. Now I'm ready for my middle ground. And my middle ground will be just a little bit lighter than my foreground, and this is why we got a mixing tray. When I want to mix a little bit of white with my color, I'm going to scoop up just a little bit and spin it off on my mixing tray. You have 2 mixing trays per table, so me and my neighbor are sharing a mixing tray. And I'm going to get a little bit of white. I'm going to spin a little bit of white next to it. Notice how I don't put the white in the green quite yet. In the middle, I'm going to mix my perfect medium gray. Not gray, green. Perfect medium green. I don't want it to be too light, and it will look like the background green. I don't want it to be too dark, otherwise it will look like the foreground green. I think that's a good medium green. That's going to go right here in the middle. I just use a little bit of paint at a time, so first of all, I don't mix too much. I only need a little bit to paint this area in. And second of all, so that I don't waste the paint. My friend can use my color that I mixed, or they can try to mix their own. Alright, my lightest green, so rinsing out my brush. If if it drips, wipe it on the lip for the blue rag. Get a little bit more green. And this will be my lightest green. So I'm going to need more white than green. Alright, my landscape is pretty much painted in, and while that's been painting, the sky has been drying. So I can go back in and with a really clean brush, add maybe some clouds in my sky. My blue is dried enough. What we're going to do with the sky, or to create clouds, is a technique called scrumbling, and that just means I'm kind of bouncing my brush up and down to make kind of like those puffy cloud textures up in the sky. So if you want to create some clouds, you may do that. Think about how clouds are a different shape. They're usually pretty flat at the bottom where the ground is, and then they get a little bit puffier at the top. So if you want to add some clouds in after your blue is a little bit dry, you can do that before putting it into the drying rack.